Hello, and welcome to Transformation by Truth podcast, where the called become the chosen, and those who have been dedicated to serve the Most High receive the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as we progress our quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life. My name is D.L. Anderson. I'll be your tour guide. Let's get started with today's lesson. Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast and the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life. Today, we continue week 10, the Quest for Holiness series. 2 weeks to prepare you for the journey of a lifetime. Today's podcast is Lecture G, a word of truth accounting of the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life, day 8. The title for today is The Pinnacle of Holiness, Part 2. And the remnant who have escaped shall again take root downward and bear fruit upward. Isaiah 37:31. The Lecture G objectives are: show how we bear fruit as we ascend the pinnacle of holiness, introduce the pinnacle of power, review the first 3 pinnacle principles, and examine the leading 3 nodes of transformation in this quest. For those in our virtual book club, this lecture references Chapter 6 of the Pinnacle of Holiness, Volume 1, A Prelude to Holiness. Now, our first section is entitled Bearing Fruit Upward. I want to begin this podcast with a short analysis of our feature verse, i.e. Isaiah 37:31. To begin with, I want to make it very clear that we are the remnant in this verse. Those of us who are traveling the way of holiness, we are the escaped ones. Let us hear what the word of truth has to say about this link. Specifically, let us reconsider the foundational passage validating the model of the pinnacle of holiness. 2 Peter 1:4 reveals, whereby are given unto us exceeding great and precious promises, that by these you might be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. Now, the fact that we have escaped, or we are in the process of escaping corruption, is a game changer, specifically because of the times we are living in. And if you were paying attention, you heard me say that this is the last time at the end of my final word in last day's podcast. In line with the prophetic word, a time is a period used for historical accounting. Thus, when I, by the Spirit, utilize the phrase last time, I am referring to the days leading up to the sifting of the nations, a time when Elohim will destroy sinners and remove all those doing lawlessness out of the earth, prior to the reign of Yahushua, Messiah. And I want you to know that I'll be speaking more to the sifting of the nations in future podcasts. Yet for now, I want you to thoroughly appreciate how the Spirit has made a way of escape for those who love Elohim and are making their calling and election sure. No doubt, this way of escape is the way of holiness, explicitly the pinnacle of holiness. We know this because Isaiah prophesied that the escaped ones would take root downward and they would bear fruit upward. My dear friends, this is the pinnacle of holiness. Taking root downward is equivalent to mastering each degree of holiness. And bearing fruit upward is demonstrating your mastery of each degree as you progress upward to the next level in the pinnacle. Therefore, I want to remind you one last time, this is the path that leads to everlasting life. And if you want to escape the wrath that is coming, destroy all those who are corrupted and defiled with sin, you must be on this path. Now, our next section is entitled The Pinnacle of Power. One of the most effective ways to comprehend the Pinnacle of Holiness is by its three primary phases. In this regard, I have been led to designate the three primary phases of the pinnacle as sub-pinnacles and pinnacles in their own right. Along these lines, the first pinnacle you will encounter within the Pinnacle of Holiness is the Pinnacle of Power. As the graphic for this section reveals, the goal of this pinnacle is to enable you to break through every obstacle you face in your quest by the power of the Holy Spirit. So here are the degrees of the Pinnacle of Power: faith, virtue, and knowledge. And as you know, these are the first three degrees found in our foundational passage in 2 Peter 1, 3 through 12. These three degrees represent one half of the work required to unlock all the major power faculties of the set-apart spirit. Here's the question. If these three degrees are only one half of the Pinnacle of Power, what are the other three degrees? The answer: the other three degrees in the Pinnacle of Power are obedience, reverential fear, or the fear of Elohim, and wisdom. Now, visibly, these remaining three degrees of the Pinnacle of Power are not included in our foundational passage, and there is a reason why. And we will address this reason in our next section as we begin to analyze the principles of the Pinnacle of Holiness. Now, our next section is entitled Pinnacle Principles 1 through 3. It goes without saying, the Pinnacle of Holiness is a complex structure. From my studies, I have identified 12 principles that are vital in understanding the ins and outs of this intricate mountain stairway. These principles address progression, regression, and the correlation between all the degrees of holiness. The first principle has to do with levels. It reveals the following. The levels of holiness represent the primary objectives of holiness. They are the attributes we must extract from the way of holiness to achieve perfection. The second principle focuses on attainment. It reveals the following. The objective of each level of holiness is to attain a comprehensive awareness of all the modules that make up that level. This attainment prepares us to move to the next level of holiness. Now, as a refresher, I'm providing a capture of the 9 levels within the Pinnacle of Holiness. And here you see the image on the right. You've got faith, virtue, knowledge, temperance, patience, a hidden level, godliness, kindness, and love. Now, the primary objective of our quest is to attain unto these 9 levels. This speaks to the fact that there are 48 secondary degrees of holiness. On this wise, each of the 16 primary degrees has 3 secondary degrees. These secondary degrees are the principal modules of each primary degree. Add to this the fact that there are 48 secondary degrees have modules of their own, and it should be clear. Mastering any degree of holiness is a complex and involved undertaking, and you will not move to the next level until you complete it. Now, the third principle addresses intervals. It reveals the following. The intervals of holiness represent the manner in which we move from one level of holiness to the next. They are the attributes we must constantly demonstrate to validate our mastery of each level and ultimately to achieve perfection. This principle speaks to why 3 of the power degrees are not found in our foundational passage. When Peter commanded us to add virtue to our faith, he was speaking to the levels of holiness. In effect, he was saying, don't stop at your attainment of faith, but go on to virtue and attain unto virtue. This speaks to the intervals of holiness. Unlike the levels, which are horizontal and disconnected, the intervals are vertical. And as they connect all the levels of holiness, they unite the entire pinnacle, not only into a singular model of holiness, but also into a singular model of perfection. This is a terrific revelation, and I trust you are receiving it. That is, without the intervals of holiness, there would be no progress. That is to say, you cannot add virtue to your faith without succeeding the interval in between virtue and faith. In this case, the interval between virtue and faith is obedience. Thus, when Peter said, add virtue to your faith, he was in effect saying, progress from faith to virtue by obedience. That is the addition he is referring to. Now, our next section is entitled, The Power of Transformation. We will speak more about the intricate workings of levels and intervals in future podcasts. For now, I want to return our analysis of the Pinnacle of Power and discuss its relationship with transformation at the detailed level. As the 9 levels of holiness are parallel to the 9 levels of transformation, our mastery of any level of holiness will result in a noteworthy occasion of transformation. Here you have on the left, the first 3 degrees of holiness, the power degrees, faith, virtue, and knowledge. And on the right, you have the first 3 phases of transformation, also power degrees, potential, function, and command. Now, our mastery of faith via obedience unlocks our potential, the first major event of transformation in our quest. And you see this by the image on the right. Next, our mastery of virtue via the fear of Elohim unlocks our ability to function, i.e., operate in the spirit. And last but not least, our mastery of knowledge via wisdom unlocks our command, i.e., authority, another event of transformation. These things being what they are, by the time you master all the degrees of power, you will have completed the leading 3 modules of transformation. 1, you will have unlocked your maximum potential, spiritual and physical. 2, you will have unlocked your ability to operate in the spirit, and you will be able to function in any capacity as you are led by the spirit. And 3, by unlocking all the major power faculties of the spirit, you will have unlocked the sacred prize of authority, having upgraded your access to the kingdom of heaven. The best part is that this is just the beginning. Remember, there are 6 more levels of holiness. That means 6 more major events of transformation are waiting for you in your quest. And we will address those in tomorrow's podcast. Now, here is the final word. You never really know yourself until you start the process of being transformed. The saying, "Man, know thyself," is a good saying, and I advise everyone, men and women, to take it to heart. And don't settle for who you are today. Not when you can be someone much better. Not when you could have an even greater impact in the lives of those you love. Remember, your quest for holiness is just as much about them as it is about you. So, if you can't find it within yourself to be your best self for you, then be your best self for those you love and for those who love you. Now, here is the assignment for today. Spend as much time as you can meditating on today's podcast and reach out to me directly if you have any questions. I'm here for you. Now, here's what's next in this series. We completed today's podcast, The Pinnacle of Holiness Part 2, and tomorrow's podcast is The Pinnacle of Holiness Part 3. Now, if you are a member and have questions, please click the Q&A box underneath the video player. Likewise, if you have comments you want to share with the group, please share those in the comment box located beneath the Q&A box. Now, if you're not a member and you have questions about today's podcast, feel free to contact us via our website at www.pinnacleofholiness.com and use the form on our contact page, and we will respond to you as soon as we can. And thank you for being with us today. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Remember to tune in with us every Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. And if you haven't already, visit us at www.pinnacleofholiness.com and make sure you sign up to join the quest for holiness, perfection, and everlasting life 2022.